I want to thank everyone again for being here today. We're excited for this opportunity to hear from the public about thoughts that you have about your community. This is a listening tour for the committee and the body to hear from you about what is important to you and about your area, what we should consider as we move through this process. I'd like to take a moment to introduce a few members of our committee. I am Senator Rick Wilburn, Chairman of the Senate Redistricting Committee. The Vice Chairman is President of the Senate, Ty Masterson, and the ranking member is the Senate Minority Leader, Diana Sykes.
And I'm Representative Chris Croft. I'm the House Chairman of the Redistricting Committee, and I'm from Overland Park. To my right is my Vice Chair of the House Committee, Representative Brad Ralph from Dodge City. And the ranking member to his right is Representative Tom Burrows from Kansas City. If I could, I'd also like to recognize, we have two members in the House. I'd like to recognize the Speaker of the House, Representative Ron Reichman Jr. And then the House Minority Leader, Representative Tom Sawyer.
I would also like to recognize that we are in the district of Kansas Senator Diana Sykes, and also and we're also in the district of Representative Vaughn. Most importantly, we'd like to acknowledge you, the audience, and thank you again for taking time to be here today. What a wonderful turnout. I believe Senator Sykes would like to give a welcome.
Good afternoon and welcome to Senate District 21. It is a great showing. I am always proud of my district, and now I get to share it with my colleagues. So thank you so much. As we are doing this, this is what I hope is only the first of many conversations that we have with you. Our ultimate goal is making sure that we draw maps that will build districts that are leading to healthier connections with your representatives, stronger representation, and better public policy for all Kansans. So my staff has handouts for contact. Like I said, this is what we hope is the first of many conversations. Thank you for being here. Especially thank you to the parents who are here. I know our schools, this is our first day of school, so thank you for taking time out of your day. And it is an honor to represent. Thank you.
We really appreciate the audience and the committee members, both here and online. A number of our committee members could not make it, so they'll be participating online. This listening tour is for us to hear from you, the public, about your community and just one step in the state's redistricting process with the goal of exceptional transparency and access. What we have to say, what you have to say is very important to us today. We ask the state elected officials to provide their comments at a later time so we can focus on what the public has to say. We are looking forward to becoming more familiar with your communities and hearing what you have to say on things to consider as we are drawing boundary lines and how to improve the process for the benefit of all involved. There was a sign-up sheet outside and folks had signed up, and we have over 50 people that have signed up to give oral testimony. If the speaker is more comfortable speaking in another language, and it would be ensured the speaker's thoughts are more accurately portrayed, we encourage the speaker to use that language. We will have comments transcribed and translated following today's meeting and provided to the committee members as we go forward and the legislative body as a whole. We are using closed captioning here in the room today. We have in the room 2 sign language interpreters, Amanda Whitten and online Jasmine Bassey. This time around, redistricting is a little more challenging with the delay in the U.S. Census data. By conducting these listening tours, it provides us an opportunity to listen to you, the public, about your communities. What are the unique characteristics and aspects? How they've changed over the last 10 years? And what are the things about your community we should think about when drawing boundary lines? We welcome your comments to improve this overall process. The listening tour is just one step, as has been mentioned by many, in a long continued process to address the overall process where we are in this sequence. I will turn the microphone now over to Jordan with the Kansas Legislative Research Department to give us an overview of the Kansas statutes as it relates to this subject. Welcome, Jordan.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Good afternoon. Are you all able to hear me now? Great. Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Again, my name is Jordan Nohond. I am a senior research analyst with the Kansas Legislative Research Department, and I'm our lead on the redistricting team. First of all, I wanted to start off by letting everyone know that a copy of this presentation is available on the Kansas Legislature website. So if you visit either the House Committee on Redistricting or the Senate Committee on Redistricting, you can find all the testimonies submitted for today, as well as this presentation. So first of all, I'm going to start off by discussing the redistricting process and the census preparations that occur before that process. Some part of the census is constantly happening. Redistricting is a part of that process. Federal law and state law requires, federal law requires states have the opportunity to participate in census preparation. States participate in the program to get data for smaller units of geography, such as precincts. The data program is broken into 5 phases, and in Kansas, we participate through the Kansas Legislative Research Department, a nonpartisan entity. We've been working through this program since 2015 with the census, and it'll continue through 2025. I've listed the phases on the slide here. Phase 1 and 2, we're looking at some of the district line, or not district line, but the voting lines. And then phase 3 is delivery of the census data. That's currently what we are awaiting. As you all have probably heard, we'll be expecting the legacy data. I think that was released this morning. And so that takes a little bit more manipulation to reach the data. It's actually preliminary data. And then by September 30th, we're expected to receive the more user-friendly files. Finally, there's 2 other phases after redistricting occurs: confirmation of the boundaries and feedback. Next, I'd like to speak about 2020 apportionment. We were given the Kansas 2020 population total, and that will be used for this cycle as well. 2,937,880 persons, and that's good for a gain of 84,762 persons. Kansas did not gain or lose a seat during the cycle. Previously, we also had an adjustment that occurred from 1988 through 2019 and the different census cycles in there. In 2019, the legislature passed a concurrent resolution, and the public voted to approve that language to remove that adjustment requirement. Previously, it was adjusted for personnel in the military and college students. Next, I'd like to highlight some of the steps in the redistricting process. So it starts off, it is a legislative process. Maps that are submitted to committee become bills. They're turned into bill language. They're subject to committee hearings and testimony and amendments. The legislature proposes, votes on, and approves congressional, Kansas House, Kansas Senate, and Kansas Board of Education district maps. And then just like other bills, the governor is able to sign, veto, or allow the bill to become law without signature. And then there's a review component by the Supreme Court for the state maps. To summarize the process a little bit further, the bill is published in the Register, and then the Attorney General has a requirement to petition the court, and then the court has a certain deadline to enter judgment. If the maps are valid, the process is complete until the next cycle. Otherwise, the legislature will have to go back and redraw the maps and keep submitting them to the Supreme Court until valid map or the maps are determined valid. I finally wanted to highlight some resources KLRD has available. Currently, we have the 2012 maps and their associated reports on our website, ksledgeresearch.org. Well, you can see on the image here, there's a listing of quite a few different reports, and those are similarly run for each plan that's subject to a technical review. The final slide here just has our contact information. So we have an office in the Capitol. You can call our office at 785-296-3181. You can visit our website if you are looking for information, or you may contact staff with questions at redistricting@klrd.ks.gov. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jordan, for those report and those comments. For those of you who sent in public comments earlier or yesterday, these documents are in the inboxes for each of the committee members and are posted online on the legislative webpage for the Redistricting Committee, kansaslegislativeresearch.org. If anyone wants to provide public comment later, please send comments to redistricting@klrd.kansas.ks.gov, or you can visit the website and there's a portal there. The legislative website does provide instructions for providing your comments, and we do ask that you follow those instructions. There is no cutoff date for the public to send in comments, day or night. The House Committee Vice Chair, Brad Ralph to my right, will maintain a timer and will indicate with a card your time remaining. The Vice Chairman will start with 1 minute remaining and 30 seconds remaining. This will give us an opportunity to wrap up your thoughts when your time is expired. He will hold up the card. We ask that you honor the card and end your comments. Today, with more than 50 people signed up to give oral comments, we're going to limit your remarks to 2 minutes. Again, a brief reminder, we have received several comments on the process. We do appreciate the comments that are online and have been sent into the database, and we welcome those, of course. We would also like to hear about your communities, how they changed over the last 10 years. What are some of the special considerations? And I've said much of this before, but I am trying to emphasize that even more so. All of this will help us in drawing potential boundary lines as we are planning our future events. It is really important to hear from you. The first speaker, now what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to call off the first speaker and the second speaker, so the second speaker can get queued up and be on the way up as the first speaker finishes up. That way you can condense some time and be a little bit more efficient. The first speaker is Nancy Wingfield, a private citizen, and the second speaker is John Meisowitz. Nancy, would you come forward? Apparently, Nancy is not here today, so we'll ask John Meisowitz to come forward. Just a moment here, would you pause? Okay, the next speaker I have on the list is Nikki Berry. It's Nikki Berry here. Thank you, Nikki. There we go. Yay. And following Nikki will be Angela Street. Just identify yourself and Push the red button.
Can people hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
great.
Yes, I'm Nikki Berry, private citizen. And this will probably be short and sweet. I didn't typically pay attention to the redistricting process that much until about a couple of years ago. I came across a video of, I believe, then Senate President Stephen Wagle. Okay, people, everyone else saw the video. Okay, she was actively talking about Kansas District 3 and how right now we currently have a Democrat, Sharice Davis, representing us. And if they redraw the district just right, they could flip it to be Republican. And after I got over the initial irritation with seeing that, and they, okay, and after I got over the initial irritation with that, I thought about it a little more and realized that the Republicans have a supermajority in the state house and the state senate, as far as I know, and both senate seats and all but one house seat. And I don't know if they're aware of something I'm not, but it seems like there's an overwhelming amount of representation already, and to be that threatened by one district in eastern Kansas, the big one.
Oh, please.
Keep going? Okay. I guess I just go with that. We don't trend the same way as the rest of Kansas, and we pick a representative who accurately represents the beliefs of most people in our community. And when you, okay, not as short as I thought, but yeah.
Thank you. Welcome, Angela, and Janet Milkovich is next. After
2020, Kansas Senate President Republican Susan Wagle called for a gerrymandered congressional redistricting map that takes out moderate Democrat Sharice Davis in the 3rd district. She said, and I quote, "We can draw 4 Republican districts." I also understand that recently Republican Senator Jerry Moran suggested placing Wyandotte County in District 1, which encompasses the western half of the state of Kansas. These two, and perhaps there are other Republicans who are intent on drawing rigged gerrymandered maps, which I find to be I find it to be a shameful effort, one that is disrespectful of voters and that devalue our democracy. Politicians should not be picking voters. Voters should be picking politicians. The Kansas Constitution is clear. Guidelines adopted in 2002 include contiguous compact areas. Commonalities are to be considered. The core of existing districts are to be maintained. Kansans should be confident that maps will be drawn fairly, equitably, accurately, with minority rights respected, and with concerns for all Kansans considered, not just Kansans who are Republicans. More about
After Janet will be Jeffrey, and I might make a couple of comments here. I've been told that they're having trouble listening online, so we'll ask you to speak right into that mic. I need to do the same thing, so thank you very much.
My name is Janet Malkovich, and first of all, I want to welcome you for coming to Overland Park. We are very grateful that you've included our community in your whirlwind listening tour to discuss redistricting. No matter what part of the state we live in, when it comes to having a say over who represents us, most of us want similar things. We want to determine how we will be represented in Congress, the House, and the Senate, and how funds for schools, hospitals, and other essential services will be allocated. Nobody knows communities better than the people who live in them. I am here as a member of the League of Women Voters of Johnson County. The League is a nonpartisan organization that supports citizen involvement in public policy at all levels of government and has been actively involved in advocating for creation of fair districts in Kansas for decades. We believe that redistricting is one of the most important actions that will be undertaken by the state in the next 11 years. As an advocate for people-powered fair maps, our goal, which we hope mirrors yours, is to create a fair and transparent redistricting process that eliminates partisan and racial gerrymandering. Those of you on this committee wield a lot of power, and we entrust you to use that power to the best of your ability. We are counting on each of you to fulfill the promise made by Speaker Reichman to revisit the 14 cities included on the listening tour again in the fall. We ask that those hearings will be publicized. It's imperative that you understand what your constituents identify. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for speaking into the mic, and I'll try to do the same. Next is Jeffrey Lee, followed by Debbie Cooper. Is Jeffrey here? I see not. Is Debbie Cooper here? Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Followed by Leslie Mark. Yes, of course, the speaker.
Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts. My name is Debbie Cooper, and my husband and I have actually just chosen to retire back to the engineering. I grew up here, lived back, my husband had 3 children, moved away again, but because we love this area, what it has to offer, and the opportunity it provides, we chose to retire here. Some of the reasons are everything from the upkeep and the number of the city and the living parts here is extraordinary. And until you live somewhere else in this country, you have no idea how those parks contribute to your quality of life and way of life. So people value. We also enjoy everything from the variety of the farmers market, shopping options, sports venues, restaurants, and easy and direct ways to get from one end of the city to the next. Celebrating diversity was another reason for our relocation back to this area. We were so proud and impressed when Johnson and Wyandotte County elected Sharice Davids to Congress. We also have relatives who have recently relocated. And what impressed them was looking at the diverse pockets that were in the community, but that every school, regardless of the makeup, continued to provide opportunity for success in all of those areas. In this era of rampant myths and disinformation, the importance of facts and complete information is essential for giving anyone the opportunity for good decisions and long-term success. For the public to trust this process, and for you to instill respect for your decisions. Any redistricting needs to be done in an open, fair, and transparent manner. Thank you for the opportunity.
Leslie Mark, followed by Mike Swinson. Thank you, Leslie, for being here.
Good afternoon. My name is Leslie Mark. Have a frog in this throat, but I live here in Mission Hills. I appreciate the time the committee's giving to public comment on fair community districting. I submitted a different, more detailed written statement, and you'll read through that. I'll probably end up submitting some more things as I listen and respond to all the sessions across the state, which I've also taken advantage of. And the chair, as chair, you prodded the public to offer the committee what we value about the regions, and you're getting that, and I appreciate that. And hopefully you're representing your regions as well. But given that, I have to ask, what are your values around the creation of fair and representative districts? We're being asked to give input and being transparent, you say, but it's a two-way thing, and the hearings seem somewhat performative. There's no referenceable list of principles, values, goals driving the process. And other than the already referenced last year vocal promise to break up this district. So, when I look at what national groups like the League of Women Voters have engaged in, democratically speaking, for years, they've asked for an adoption of independent commissions to balance competing interests. The legislature would have been involved in creating fair representative community maps, just not directed the whole process. Similarly, we've had and heard again, accurate enumeration is a concern. And we know that numbers released today, just as the listening tour is going to be wound down, research department will, finally be able to give us usable data next week or some other time. So I'm going to not say the rest of this, I'd simply say, what if we look at water rights? We have Western rights and Eastern rights. We've got about 7 different aquifers. We haven't ever looked at how that sets up competing interests in the state. What does that do over the next 10, 11 years? Eastern folk are going to draw their water in a different kind of way. What will that do? Those are the kinds of things we need to be able to engage with you as a committee in an ongoing process.
Thank you for your presentation. Following Mr. Swinson will be Stacy Noel.
Swinson, Leewood.
Thank you.
Am I talking here? As a fifth generation Kansan myself, and a father and grandfather of 6th and 7th generation Kansans, all still living in Kansas. I appreciate the opportunity to provide you with some thoughts about redistricting. This is an important process, and since we only have the opportunity to do it once every 10 years, we have to get it right. My family's been involved in politics and public service in many ways in Kansas over the decades. I was taught at an early age and tried to pass along a Kansas value I know we all hold dear, and that's fairness. Regardless of where you live in Kansas, what you do, or who you are, we expect our public servants to clear a high bar when it comes to being fair to all Kansans. Fairness is the most important filter you have as legislators when it comes to redrawing congressional districts and legislative districts. We have all heard the horror stories in other states where districts are gerrymandered with ridiculous boundaries lines, all in an attempt for the current party in power to hang on to power. Clearly, this is not a fair approach to redistricting, and one we hope you do not follow here in Kansas. We know we will maintain our 4 congressional districts. Therefore, it seems logical that our current congressional district map should stay nearly the same. There are population shifts. The Kansas City metro region is growing. It is vital, though, that Wyandotte and Johnson County stay whole and stay connected in one congressional district. Since the modern era of redistricting began 50 years ago, these 2 counties have always remained connected with the same member of Congress representing both Republicans and Democrats. The 3rd District of Kansas is the most diverse district we have in Kansas. Fairness dictates that these diverse communities remain connected and represented by the same member of Congress, regardless of which political party they belong to. Splitting up Wyandotte and Johnson counties would not be fair to us as residents here, or in fact the entire state. The urban and suburban constituents of this region have unique needs, and they deserve to be represented with a single voice. Likewise, the constituents in more rural areas and small towns have unique needs, and they deserve to be represented with a single voice. Finally, the rule of fairness must also be applied to legislative districts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi. My name is Stacy Nell, and I've been a resident of Olathe since 2003. I live here now with my husband and 2 daughters. We all know that drawing legislative districts is a political process. Indeed, the Supreme Court has given partisan gerrymandering the green light. With that backdrop, it is no surprise that former Kansas Senate President Susan Wagle felt emboldened enough to speak openly about the plan to draw Sharice Davids out of the congressional district. It's more interesting that she could speak with such an authority about what any district would look like without seeing any census data. It's almost as if there was a plan to cheat. Unfortunately, drawing a district that Sharice cannot win will sacrifice to the Kansas City metropolitan area. Any plan to draw Wyandotte County into, say, the big first congressional district would have a chilling effect on the African-American voting bloc in Wyandotte County. The United States is a representative democracy, and for that to work, it needs to be possible for the people to elect those who actually represent them and their interests. I would argue that placing Wyandotte County in a congressional district with, say, Greeley, Wallace, or Seward counties would do both communities a disservice, but to do particular harm to Wyandotte County. Such maps also undermine the faith in all political systems because it leaves an entire community with a strong impression that they are political pawns, expendable ones at that, and wondering if any representative elected from the gerrymandered district would have any of their concerns at the forefront. Moreover, those of us living in Johnson County would know that a map breaking off Wyandotte County would have no other purpose than to break apart the Democratic voting bloc that Northeast Kansas has become, and of course to meet the stated goal of drawing Sharice Davids out of a winnable district. I'm here to request this committee draw fair maps that do not seek to undermine voters. The burden of proof is on you, and that bar has been set high. The previous Senate president has openly spoken for plans to remove fairness from the equation by adding in trickery. I thank you for your time today, and we'll be watching how this process unfolds with great interest.
Thank you. The next conferee is Richard Pine, followed by Amy Carter. Welcome, sir.
That's good. Good afternoon. My name is Richard Pund, and I am a resident of Overland Park. First, I want to say that I believe a nonpartisan redistricting process provides the best opportunity to produce fair maps this cycle. I know everyone else is already talking about that, so I will lend my support to what they have to say and move on. I believe that many of the current complaints surrounding the redistricting process are just byproducts of how we hold our elections. We have single-member districts and winner takes all. If we change to multi-member districts and use proportional representation, we would greatly improve many of these problems. With our current system, it is not difficult to gerrymander single-member districts to suit a particular outcome. PR, proportional representation, makes it more difficult to pack and cramp voters like this because the margin of victory actually starts to matter. Maps of this are in the written testimony for reference. The committee has been receiving a lot of feedback lately about communities of interest. To add another example, my neighborhood is split up across state districts, Senate districts 7, 8, and 11. A multi-member map would naturally have fewer lines to draw, and meaning more communities would be kept together. Proportional representation would create districts that are both competitive and representative. Right now, with single-member districts, we have to choose between one or the other. Examples of these in the State House are also in my testimony. I will skip to the end because I see there's only a little bit of time. What I am suggesting here is not particularly new or unique. I'm basically suggesting that Kansas adopt the Fair Representation Act, which is a bill in Congress introduced in 2017. Additionally, other countries around the world already use PR in their elections and have done so for decades. I recognize what I am saying now is not realistic for this cycle. A constitutional amendment would be required, for one, to get rid of the single-member district requirement there. However, I am convinced that this is a much better way to hold our elections, as is well worth pursuing. It is very frustrating to see the same arguments held over and over again every 10 years as we keep going through redistricting. Think of the time we would all have to work on other policy issues if redistricting did not have such a huge influence on the outcome of our elections. I hope the committee will take this opportunity to assess the flaws created by our process and propose legislation that truly fix those. Otherwise, I fear we'll all be back here in 2030 saying the same things. Thank you for your time.
Next is Amy Carter, followed by Matt Calcara. Welcome to the committee.
Hi there. My name is Amy Carter. I've been a resident of Overland Park in Senate District 37 and House District 8 since 2003. I do appreciate the opportunity to supply testimony in support of transparent and fair redistricting. I'm here to ask that an independent commission be charged with redistricting once census data is available to ensure the process. In addition to my written testimony that I supplied in advance, I had some more time to think about the issues and what I wanted to say. So I'm going to trust that you'll read my written testimony in that the importance of keeping Johnson and Wyandotte counties together, as we do have similar interests, especially environmental concerns when it comes to water and air quality. I'd like to keep these counties together to the extent possible and keep them whole in their entirety wherever they end up. Any effort to separate any part of the counties would be an attempt to dilute our votes. As I mentioned in my introduction, I live in Senate District 37, which includes the southern part of Johnson County and rural Miami County. I know you can't see this, but I live in the tippy top of the yellow part of Senate District 37. We have very few in common, very little in common with rural Miami County. I don't believe that someone who represents Miami County can represent the interests of my neighborhood or the surrounding Johnson County neighborhoods at all. The most populous parts of Johnson County should not be included in the same district as rural counties. Our interests vary greatly. In closing, the Kansas City Metro is currently whole within Kansas's 3rd congressional district and should remain in the single district to the extent possible, as we all have shared interests in representation. All of Johnson County should be included in the same district, and similarly, all of Wyandotte County should be included to not dilute these minority votes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Matt, just a moment. I do want to make a comment. When you speakers are speaking, if the translator is not translating, that means they're not hearing us. So please proceed, Matt. And David Leonard is applicant.
Hello, my name is Matthew Calcara. I am a voter here in the 3rd Congressional District and would like to stay that way. While you may fulfill the bare minimum of consulting with the people of Kansas about new district lines, we all know these hearings are a farce. Last time around, the committee heard testimony over a period of 4 months with the full census data needed to draw new districts fully available. In 2021, the majority party of the committee decided, without even consulting the minority members, to hold all hearings in a single week, all of them during the work week, and with most of them at times that make it nearly impossible for working people to attend. I had to take some paid time off. We're all over. If you simply waited to begin these hearings, we'd have the proper data we'd need for real citizen input on the maps. And if you'd simply followed past precedent and spaced out the hearings over a period of 4 months, we'd be able to provide the real input on maps Kansans want to see. But this committee chose to do exactly none of that, and we all know why. The majority party intends to create maps that put their interests ahead of the interests of Kansans who want to make our voices heard. Simply put, gerrymandering is cheating. Drawing maps that crush the voices of Kansans who may now be a minority, but who will not be a minority forever, is antithetical to democracy itself. It's a betrayal of everything this country is supposed to be. So since the majority party on the committee is focused on ignoring Kansans, I would like to put this in the record for the Kansas Supreme Court. Don't fall for it. Don't let the legislature, which has consistently undermined the judiciary, undermine democracy itself too. To the Kansas Supreme Court, I beg you, don't let them take our democracy away. Kansans need our Supreme Court to stand up for our democratic system of government, since this committee will not do that. The stakes have never been higher because we've seen in other states like Wisconsin and North Carolina, once a gerrymander is in place, it can be nearly impossible to dismantle. This is even more true in a state like Kansas, which does not allow citizen ballot initiatives that have or will dismantle gerrymandering in states like Michigan. The difference is in 2031 or 2041, we may not have a Supreme Court that's willing to stand up for democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, I have David Leonard, followed by Ron Fugate. Mr. Here. Is Mr. Fugate here? Welcome to the committee, sir.
Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Ron. Mike. My name is Ron Fugate, and I am a private citizen in a very public setting at the moment. I'm here to ask for support of transparent and fair redistricting. And I'm here also to explain why my district should remain the same. As a resident living within the 3rd Congressional District, I closely identify with this community that is 95% urban. And within the district's boundaries lies the heart of the Kansas side of the Kansas City metropolitan area. It should remain in a single district. Residents have shared common interests and representation. For example, I serve my community as one of the founders of a disability advocacy group. Most of our members hail from the 3rd Congressional District. We share common interests in advancing the needs of those with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but we also share the commonalities afforded us as residents of this district. As the redistricting process advances, transparency is paramount. You know, it wasn't that long ago that the Kansas City Star published a series entitled, "Why So Secret, Kansas?" The expose focused on the lack of transparency in Kansas government. After census data are available and before the 2022 session, I ask that you hold additional town halls so that Kansans can review data and offer input. Meetings need to be accessible, including online and with reasonable advance notice. I come to know the 3rd Congressional District is my community. Keep it transparent.
Next, I have Leanne Barclay, followed by Tracy Osborne-John. Welcome to the committee.
You hear me?
You really got to
How's
lean in.
that? How's that? Better? All right. Okay. A lot of what I'm going to say has already been said, but I will just reiterate it. My name's Leanne Barclay, and I'm testifying today because I want to implore this committee to be as fair, transparent, and accessible as possible. And as we know, today is really only the first step. Accessibility is vitally important if Kansas citizens' voices are to be heard. At this time, the vast majority of town halls are scheduled during the 9 to 5 workday, and combine that with the very limited notification of this meeting, and you'll agree that it makes it very difficult for working people to attend. I hope this committee will provide additional opportunities for more in-person and virtual town halls. I would suggest that these meetings be well advertised and scheduled at a more easily accessible time. Although I have to say, we all did a pretty good job here today. This would give citizens adequate time to prepare testimony and make whatever arrangements are needed. After all, you want as much input as possible to make fair decisions regarding redistricting. In regards to fairness, I feel Johnson County and Wyandotte County should be provided additional opportunities to express their concerns and wishes. After all, we compose 25% of the Kansas population, but are only 14% of the scheduled meetings. I do trust this imbalance will be corrected with more town halls in our area, especially after the census data has been available for analysis. To guarantee transparency and fairness, it is important to continue the public meeting process into the fall when the census data is available. No honest plan can be made until that information is known to all of us. Lastly, as a resident of Shawnee, I would hope that the 3rd District would remain unchanged. This area has shared community resources and concerns and should not be broken up. 10 years ago, the courts created nonpartisan maps, and I really hope that this committee will do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. After Tracy comes Evelyn Craig and Doug. Tracy.
Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Osborne Olchin. I'm the president and CEO of the Overland Park Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to welcome all of you officially to Overland Park. Thank you for being here and thank you for the opportunity to provide our perspective on the redistricting process. We understand the timing of these hearings is difficult for everyone as COVID has impacted so many things in our lives, particularly this redistricting process. The census data that is being released today, no one has had the opportunity to really process that information and analyze it to understand what it means. You haven't had that opportunity and we haven't had that opportunity either. It is our hope that you will hold another round of hearings once we've had the opportunity to look at the numbers, draw the maps, and react to them. We will look forward to providing our specific response to that and then provide feedback at that time. In the interim, we have a few observations to share. Projections indicate that Johnson County has grown more than 10% in the last decade, leading many to believe that we are poised to gain at least 3 new House districts and at least 1 new Senate district. This increase in districts is appropriate to provide representation in a county that has been growing and will continue to do so, adding both jobs and residents. Adding these new districts ensures that the Kansans who live in this area have the representation they deserve in both Topeka and in Washington. We believe that to achieve appropriate representation, Johnson County should remain intact in the same congressional district. Your job that you're getting ready to embark upon is not enviable, but is one of the most important things you do in terms of long-term ramifications in our state. We look to you to draw maps that adhere to standards of compactness, recognizing existing subdivisions of political interest, as well as communities of interest. We look forward to talking with you again when we have maps to react to, and as always, thank you for your service to our state.
Thank you. After Evelyn comes Doug Smith. Thank you. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. And am I okay?
Yeah, speak right into it, but you're right on back.
I'm ready for a second. All right. Thank you very much for this opportunity and for this awesome responsibility that you all have agreed to take on. As a 20+ year resident of the Whispering Hills community in Lenexa, I am asking the Redistricting Committee to keep the 3rd congressional district lines intact as they are. The district correctly reflects the Kansas City metro area and is populated by vibrant and diverse suburban and urban communities. Wyandotte and Johnson counties share not only a border and their important roles as part of a dynamic major metropolitan area. We share a dedication to preserving community assets and tackling community problems because that is what we do in the 3rd congressional district. Breaking up the 3rd congressional district in order to achieve short-term and cynical partisan goals doesn't hurt anyone at the table in front of me. It doesn't hurt anyone in elected office, and it hurts no politicians. But it hurts the Kansans who live here. And that is not what public servants do. I know you're public servants, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. After Mr. Smith comes Mina Steen. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Welcome. Can you hear me? Is this all right? No? Is that better? All right. I'll try to swallow the mic then almost. My name is Doug Smith. I'm a registered voter of Overland Park. Redistricting has been said is one of the most important tasks that this legislature will undertake this year. The need to have a process that is transparent is critical at this time of cynicism about government. Holding these hearings is a start to addressing that cynicism. It's only a start. We need an invitation to a public input in this process that's going to include more people than just this one hearing. I'd like to offer several thoughts about how to address them. First, I'm retired and I work part-time, so I can attend the day session. But I have friends and neighbors who are still working full-time during the day and cannot be here. While they could submit written testimony, there's something meaningful about a face-to-face exchange and the opportunity to hear what's expressed by others in the meeting. Second, some of my older friends would have trouble submitting written testimony with an online-only option. I'd like to suggest that you provide some kind of a written, maybe post office, PO box, or some other means of people to send you the written testimony. Third, as has been mentioned before, it's difficult to know what to say before the census data has been released. I or anyone can only speak in very general terms about our aspirations or our fears. Thus, thoughtful input is limited. Fourth, I don't know about the criteria that's been established. It's been referenced in the past, but I don't know if you've actually said what criteria you're going to use. We'd like to know that before we get more comment. I think you could address these concerns with some additional hearings. Holding hearings after the census data is released and after you've established your criteria for the process would be welcome. Having evening or weekend hearings where working folks could attend would be useful. Having multiple hearings in the larger counties, not only Johnson County, but also I think probably Sedgwick and some other larger counties would probably be useful also. Finally, the PO box or some other address that I mentioned earlier. Unless you could begin to address these concerns that I mentioned earlier about cynicism, I hope that you can address those. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Carrie O'Brien will follow Misty. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Mina Steen. I've lived in Johnson County my entire life. Thank you for your service and for your thoughtful consideration of the perspectives shared by your fellow Kansans. Because time is limited, I will speak to my key concerns. Democracy is historically rare, it's fragile, and it's in decline across the globe. It is layered, complicated, slow, inefficient, and messy. It is sometimes hard to live with because it's designed to give everyone an equal say in the decisions that affect their lives. We don't always get our way, and that is difficult for us, each of us. But the democratic process is a sacred part of our country's heritage and a key element of our success and freedom. It's what binds us together. But it needs our vigilance to keep it fair and healthy. I believe redistricting, that process of redistricting is a fundamental element of our democracy, thus very important. And I ask you to be sure this is done in a transparent and fair manner. My family work and volunteer ties to their congressional district are deep. My daily activities regularly traverse both Johnson and Wyandotte counties. They are both my community, and I like sharing representation accordingly. Because our counties share boundaries and they're both densely populated, the needs and priorities of our counties and their respective cities are frequently aligned. More importantly, when it comes to legislative concerns, we have the same priorities in spite of our differences: safety, health, education, transportation, our environment, and economic development, to name a few. My biggest concern for our country is not which party is in control. My concern is the loss of trust in government brought on by an erosion of ethical values and respect for the truth. As leaders of my state, I'm counting on you to guard this process and be sure it supports a fair and democratic approach to electing our representative government. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. After Ms. O'Brien will become Cassie Woolworth. Welcome to the committee.
My name is Carrie O'Brien. I'm a resident, voter, and ordinary citizen here in Kansas. This is my first time speaking at a meeting like this, and I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to give testimony on how redistricting affects Kansans like me. Watching the testimonies earlier in the week motivated me to submit my own. I watched the recorded live streams for after work, through the technical difficulties and microphone problems, and I realized that I needed to speak up if I had an opinion. One of the speakers on Monday pointed out that at 33, he was one of the youngest people present at that meeting. This was very relatable to me, because as a millennial who uses PTO to volunteer as an election worker, I'm used to going out of my way to participate in civic activities. The short notice and schedule for this listening tour have made it difficult for many people to participate this week, and that stands in opposition to the supposedly fair and transparent goals. I don't know how we can expect to discuss fair redistricting or present relevant testimony without census data in accessible formats. I do know that I've been voting in Kansas my entire adult life, and that I feel like my current representatives represent me. And I'm concerned that redistricting may change that. Redrawing districts to disadvantage another party is gerrymandering. It's cheating, it's not honorable or fair. The vote for The voters should be able to choose who they want to elect. The elected should not be able to choose their voters. I know that the people I know often lament how polarizing these times can be. Drawing fair and unbiased maps could guarantee that we don't cement that polarization into the next decade. Do the right thing. Do not redraw Kansas just to make 4 Republican districts. Thank you for your time.
Next, I have Kathy Woolworth, followed by Paula Swatch. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name.
My name is Cassie Woolworth. I live in Olathe. I'm in District 3. I'm here to request an open, fair, and transparent redistricting committee. Gerrymandering is cheating. Do you want that to be the legacy you leave your children? Quite honestly, my children have to win honestly, or we disqualify ourselves. Are you going to disqualify yourselves by cheating? Here's the other question. Have you already drawn the maps? Is this just falling on deaf ears because we want District 3 to stay together? I think you've heard that. I think it's come in the mail too. We want District 3 to stay together. I don't understand how to say that any better. Open, fair, transparent, honest. Honesty. Honesty in a congressperson. Would you like to be admired for your honesty? Gerrymandering is cheating. Gerrymandering is cheating. Gerrymandering is cheating. Do we get it? Okay. We know our neighborhoods. We know our people in our neighborhoods. We voted Sharice in. We voted Laura Kelly in, damn it. So please do this fairly. We don't want cheaters in office. Thank you for your time.
After Paula will come Thomas Stroud and Pam Nolan. Thank you to you for the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm Paula Schwank. I'm the mayor of Westwood. Begin by recommending to you for adoption the proposed guidelines and criteria for 2022 Kansas congressional and state legislative redistricting. That text is dated May 20, 2021 and found at the Kansas Office of the Reviser of Statutes. You have not presented us with a set of principles. That document that I'm going to call the criteria contains a set of principles. While the criteria are important, they are not wholly sufficient, so I want to propose 2 additions, and I won't make my comments publicly about the process. You have them in writing. The criteria include the principle of keeping whole counties in the same congressional district. As a mayor, I can tell you that when I go to the Council of Mayors, it is not the Johnson County Council of Mayors, it is the Wyandotte Johnson County Council of Mayors. When I sit on the board of the Mid-America Regional Council, which is a planning body, I am not voting only on transportation and planning decisions that affect Johnson County. I'm also voting on things that apply to Wyandotte County. When I look at my residents, many of them teach, do research, or otherwise work at the expanded facility in southern Johnson County called KU Med. So we are one community of interest. The second thing I want to talk about with regard to the criteria is that they should be expanded to prohibit the use of data such as incumbents' residences, election results, party registration, or other socioeconomic data Technology Technology provides the siren song for gerrymandering. It's possible, because of technology, to draw thousands of maps in a matter of minutes with ever more sophisticated data and analytics. It's not just election results and demographics, but also increasingly consumer data about us, like who do you donate to, what kind of car do you drive. The map makers can build a robust profile of each voter, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, and how likely you are to vote in which elections. And that in turn enables, with micro precision, a deeply undemocratic process and outcome. Office holders who select the voters. Thank you.
Next is Thomas Stroud, followed by Pam Nolan and Stuart Stain. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Let me just be brief. Please don't gerrymander. And we've heard plenty of reasons not to do that as a fairness issue. There have been many eloquent speakers. I ask you also to focus on the economics. Let's face it, the third district is a major driver of the state's economy. Here in Johnson County, where I'm a resident, we have roughly a fifth of the state's population, and we contribute roughly a third of the tax revenue to the state as a whole. In short, this is about the law of the state. I'm not complaining about that, but what I'm suggesting is you threaten that if you destroy the moderate base that makes that possible. We have very wise public investments and very wise fiscal management, so we're consistently at the top of the nation, schools and cultural events, so on. And yet we still maintain an excellent bond rate. The same cannot be said for parts of the state where there's a race to have tax cuts and public disinvestment. If it's Kansas you're worried about and you want it to thrive and prosper, don't split up the third. Thank you.
Next is Pam Nolan, followed by Stuart Stein and Teresa Phillips. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. My name is Pam Nolan and I live in Leawood. And I took a rather different approach to my testimony, and I hope I don't bore everybody. But my first step was to try to understand why is redistricting so contentious. So I tried to educate myself on what are the best practices. The next thing I did was I looked at the proposed guidelines and criteria, which are virtually identical to 2012 from what I could tell. And then the third thing I did was just recently, I wanted to see how my opinions and thoughts compared to others with their written testimony and also what you hear today. So basically, you start with the census data, and I think we all know we're growing by 3% as a state. Be aware, I am speaking as a statewide proponent as opposed to just a Johnson County. But we also know that there's a serious population shift, and that needs to be accounted. Now, within our particular guidelines, there are things like districts should be numerically equal. Thank you for the plus or minus 5%. Redistricting should not dilute minority and communities of interest. But there are several that I put together because I noticed that they seem to be emphasized. And I wanted to make sure that although compact regions, districts are good, and trying to keep existing community of interest together are good, please do not ignore the demographic data when you get there. I believe Kansas is much more diverse than it was 10 years ago. And please take that into consideration. I also noticed that there were several best practices that I read that are not included in our guidelines. And they are the concept of proportionality, competitiveness, and efficiency gap. The fact that you lose votes when you gerrymander. So I would like to advocate for an independent, nonpartisan committee going forward. And I'm sorry.
Mr. Stein, thank you for being here, and Teresa Phillips is followed.
Thank you. My name is Stuart Stein. I've been a resident of Johnson County for 47 years. The best decision that my wife and I ever made was to move here, and I want to maintain the status quo. I'd like to explain that. As a resident of this 3rd congressional district, I've had the opportunity and have proudly voted for Democrats for Congress. I have voted for Republicans for Congress. I know all of the elected representatives and the congressional delegation that we have had, and they know me. The best way of dealing with the attempt to have a community be a community is let a community decide what it wants. And the mere fact that we have, on the national level, have changed our party affiliations is a credit to all of us, in my opinion. The law will tell you that you start with the proposition that if it isn't broken, don't fix it. And that's the situation that I advocate. Now, when it comes to the state legislative districts, as you have been told, and as we anticipate, there are some changes in population. We have new neighborhoods. We have lesser people in other neighborhoods. That needs to be adjusted, but it needs to be adjusted in a fair manner that keeps groups of people together that have reasons to be together. Very simple. We have library districts. We have water districts. We have all kinds of districts within our area. And generally, they follow county lines. And the worst thing that could happen in our area is to separate what has been so good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. After Mrs. Phillips comes Holly Whitney. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. I'm Teresa Phillips. Up in South Central Kansas, Wichita and Hutchinson, mostly Wichita. And after about 20 years living in other states for college, graduate school in the early years of my career, so I was part of that Kansas brain drain in the 70s and 80s. I returned to Kansas City metro area about 34 years ago to be closer to family, and I've lived in Overland Park for the last 19 years. Kansans are not a monolithic population, and we should not desire to be one. A healthy population thrives on diversity, and inbred population will eventually die. Inbreeding is not just a genetics problem, but it is also a social and political problem. The Republicans desire to silence anyone who disagrees with their radical agenda by gerrymandering every voting district to ensure their candidate's success is not only unfair and un-American, but is disastrous for the people of Kansas. To not welcome input from all who have experience, education, and expertise is foolish. The Republican Party has always had the majority of voters in Kansas during my lifetime, which is now 70 years. They'll probably have a majority for years to come. Why are they so afraid of allowing the rest of us to have a voice? I asked the redistricting committee to be fair. I also asked them to be wise. And now I mean this sincerely. I will be praying for them. I am a Christian, and I do try to live that out.
Thank you very much. After Ms. Whitney is Aaron Woods. Welcome to the committee.
Good afternoon. My name is Holly Whitney. I'm a resident of Olathe, Kansas, and I'm a U.S. citizen. However, I lived abroad in the tiny country of Costa Rica for 22 years, from 1981 through mid-2003. When I left my country in 1981, I was an independent politically. President Reagan had just begun his presidency, and I believed then, after primarily Democrat-controlled U.S. Congress for the last 50 years, that perhaps it was time for a change, particularly in the realm of deregulation, which Reagan strongly championed. During those years in Costa Rica, I was amazed at the 90% participation, 80 to 90% participation in elections by the citizenry of that country, most likely because Election Day was a national holiday. Elections were hotly contested, with all the attendant political intensity, scandals, and controversies that widespread voter participation engendered. In spite of this political intensity, however, the citizens of Costa Rica were united 100% with regard to the core value of everyone's right to vote in a free and fair election accurately counted. I once believed that my own country, the United States of America, was the world's leader, a shining example of election integrity for the rest of the world to follow. I no longer believe that. In the almost 20 years since I returned to the country of my birth, the spectacle of ever-intensifying efforts on the part of Republican stronghold states to enact voter suppression laws and the increasingly extreme gerrymandering of voter districts absolutely horrifies me. I am simply appalled. I believe very strongly in what I thought was a core principle of our shared American values from the time of our country's founding: the power of competition, be it in the arena of politics, business, sports, etc., to create innovation and inspire novel solutions to the benefit of most of us, if not all of us. Although I have no problem whatsoever with the existence of Republican, red, Democrat, blue, or swing states, I very definitely have a problem with states becoming and/or remaining so by drowning out the very positive and even regenerative power of political competition through extreme gerrymandering and voter suppression laws. Therefore, I demand a fair legislation, execute the process of redistricting fairly.
Next comes Michael Papa and Aaron Woods. Welcome to the.
My name's Erin Wood, and I live in Leewood. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I've seen the gerrymandered districts in other parts of the country, and I've always felt fortunate that here in Kansas, we've had pretty fair maps. And that's why it was so disheartening to see former Senate President Susan Wagle speaking to supporters and telling them that that maps could be redrawn so that Republicans could take back their congressional seat and prevent a Democrat from winning in the next 10 years. I know that you all know that manipulating maps is wrong. And I believe that you all know that the entirety of Johnson and Wyandotte counties belong together due to their connection to the KC metro area and their many common attributes and concerns. But I just wanted to give just a few examples from my own personal life to illustrate how these two counties are intertwined and are really just one big community. First, with my kids' sports. My son played club soccer for 10 years. We live in northern Johnson County, but he practiced and played in fields all across the two counties, from Lone Elm Fields in South Olathe to the Wyandotte Soccer Complex in Kansas City, Kansas. In 2010, I was the contractor when we built our new home. And throughout that process, when picking out materials, I visited stores that sold windows, trim, tile, stone, brick, you name it, all over the two counties. Considering the amount of new construction in our counties, I can only imagine how many contractors in the area are doing the same. This is just one example of how our economies depend upon each other. And then there's COVID. Johnson and Wyandotte counties had to work together in the fight against the virus. Precautions or lack of precautions in one county could have a big impact on the other, as our community members cross the county lines frequently without even realizing it for a variety of reasons. And even though I live in Johnson County, I volunteered at a vaccine clinic in Wyandotte County. I didn't give a second thought to the clinic location. I just wanted to do my part to help our collective community. I ask that you keep the map of the 3rd Congressional District largely the same as it is today. And I ask that you keep the redistricting process fair and transparent, starting with holding more town halls throughout the year and town halls that are during the evening hours when more people are able to attend. Although I'd say we have quite a good crowd. And maybe a larger space would be good. Social distancing, I'd like that. So please see my written testimony for a number of other examples highlighting how these two counties are really just one big community of interest. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I just want to emphasize that manipulated maps should not determine representation of votership.
Now, before we go to the next person, I'm going to give the interpreter an opportunity to have a drink of water if you need to take a break. She's been standing for over an hour. Are you all set? Okay, welcome to the committee.
Chairman, members of the Joint Committee, good afternoon. My name is Michael Pope. I'm the Executive Director of Mainstream Coalition. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today in support of transparent and fair redistricting. Mainstream Coalition is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We are member-based and represent thousands of Kansans, with the majority residing in Johnson and Wyandotte counties. Central to our mission is empowering informed participation in the political process to create a more representative and responsive government for all Kansans. That's already a Herculean effort in and of itself, but it's been made even more difficult by this redistricting process so far. We've also submitted written testimony. In that testimony, among other requests, we ask that you keep the promise to hold additional town halls after the census data is released, that those town halls be transparent, fair, and accessible, unlike these held this week, that minority voices not be suppressed, and that the state and congressional districts not be manipulated to give power to one party. In addition, today I urge that the committee hold more than one additional town hall in both Wyandotte and Johnson counties. Overland Park, Kansas City, and Olathe comprise 3 of the 5 largest cities in the state, and one 75-minute town hall in each county is woefully inadequate. Representation matters. You are tasked with creating fair maps that represent the Kansans in an equitable manner, but you don't have to do this alone. Please listen to those of us taking the time to write testimony, stepping up to speak. Most of these people here speaking today, first time. It takes a lot of courage to get up here to this microphone, so they're passionate about it. Please listen to them. Thank you very much for your consideration of this testimony and for all you do to uphold the interests of Kansans in this process, especially our Northeast Johnson County and Wyandotte County legislators.
Next is Rabbi Monte Reber. After him will come Jennifer Day and Carlos Jacobs. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Rabbi Motzi Reber. I'm going to do my New Jersey Talk Fast thing. I serve as Executive Director of Kansas Interfaith Action. We're a multi-faith issue advocacy organization. Thanks, Mom. Work that works on behalf of people of faith and the public on a number of important policy issues. We're the representative of a number of the major denominations in Kansas, including ELC, Lutherans, the Kansas Oklahoma Conference of the UCC, and the Mercy and Justice Team of the United Methodist Church. We've been involved in voting rights issues for many years, for several years now. I want to say that democracy is how we put into practice the scriptural directive that every person is equal in the eyes of God. It's very important that our vote be counted equally. Districts are drawn to intentionally favor one or the other party. It takes away, it says that one vote is more valuable than another. There's been a national effort to suppress votes and to break up the interests of minorities, political, economic, ethnic and racial minorities. Kansas has not been Absent from these efforts, our specific concerns are in three areas. One is transparency. We've heard a lot about the process and the fear that this is this is kind of a pantomime to lead to a predetermined outcome. Very concerned about that. That the process be fair and transparent. That the line should be drawn without regard to partisanship. Second, that areas of mutual interest remain connected. Wyandotte and Johnson being connected by agents of affordable housing, transportation, climate change, and infrastructure. And third, that the electoral strength of disadvantaged communities, particularly minorities and immigrant communities and working people, should not be diluted. So if you break up Wyandotte or you put it in the first district, you are taking away the political power of our already disadvantaged community. Thank you very much.
Next, I call on Jennifer Day, followed by Corliss Jacobs. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. So I'm Jennifer Day, a longtime citizen of Overland Park, former member of the Kansas House. It's good to see you. So it's hard to ignore the growth that Johnson County has experienced in the last decade plus. Johnson County has an important place in the overall Kansas City metro, especially as combined with our neighbors in Wyandotte County. Our concerns and needs at the state and federal level might vary a bit from those in more rural points to our west. And representation in both cases should be focused on those community-specific concerns and needs. My former State House District 48 changed significantly over the last 10 years, which was how long I lived there. With many new housing and business developments added in that time. Already a very compact house district. I don't know that there's one that's smaller than this in Johnson County. It might become even more so through this redistricting process. I'm betting it won't be alone in those changes in the county. I hope that I'll have the opportunity to provide more informed testimony at a future town hall after seeing and analyzing the census data. I'm going to speak to a few days ago, you heard testimony in Salina that mentioned a video which used an example of pennies and dimes in the redistricting process. It's a friend of mine named Ann Zimmerman who mentioned it. It's a wonderful short video titled The Basic Math of Gerrymandering and can be found on YouTube or by Googling that same title. I would recommend that everybody have a chance to go in less than 2 minutes. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to the committee members for being here. I realize that we are a citizen legislature, as most are across the United States, and that this is taking out time from your families and from your lives. We really appreciate you being here. And special thanks to the KLRD and the legislative staff that have worked so hard to make this process as informative and smooth as possible. You guys are rock stars. Thank you so much.
Next, we have Ms. Jacobs, followed by Connie Taylor. Welcome to the committee.
Okay, is that done? Okay. Corliss Jacobs. I am a resident of Olathe, and my husband and I have lived in this area of Johnson, Wyandotte County for up 50 years. We were teachers at the Shawnee Mission School District, now retired, and many of our friends were teachers also, now retired, and they were teachers in both Wyandotte and Johnson County, sometimes even back and forth. I think everything that I was planning on saying has been said, and I think the testimony has been outstanding, making the point that the third district is a community of interest and that both counties are quite diverse. Johnson County becoming even more diverse. Wyandotte County has had that privilege for a long time. So one of the speakers mentioned that Western Kansas or the other parts of rural Kansas are becoming more diverse. And it is definitely true, but they are becoming diverse perhaps in a different way. And I, having grown up in Western Kansas, very Western rural Kansas, I am aware that the needs of rural Kansas, whether it is a diverse part of the state or a very traditional part of the state, I am aware that their needs are very different.
from our needs in the metro area. And I think that must be taken into consideration. We have worked across county lines. We use KU medical services, which are in both counties. And there are many other examples that I could give, but many people have. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for giving consideration to this important issue.
Thank you. Before we go to Ms. Taylor, I would like to repeat the words that Ms. Jacobs said. If you find yourself repeating some comments that you've heard before, it would help us get through this timeline and not to go over that again. After Ms. Taylor comes Rachel Sweet. Ms. Taylor?
Mr. Chair, members of the Redistricting Committees, the Johnson County delegation here today, and the legislative staff. My name is Connie Taylor. I live in Olathe. I'm here as a member of the League of Women Voters of Johnson County. Thank you for this opportunity. I realize my time is limited, and I will summarize a little bit of what is in my testimony. I've met with organizations in both Johnson and Wyandotte counties. Together, we've identified our community of interest. We ask that you keep Johnson and Wyandotte counties together in the 3rd Congressional District. As others have mentioned, our community is diverse, densely populated. We are a regional urban center that relies on our complex and interconnected transportation network that drives our socioeconomic stability. We are part of the Mid-America Regional Council that is unique to Kansas, and it serves the greater Kansas City metropolitan areas. Our dense population and transportation network create environmental and health issues. We are home to 3 major regional healthcare delivery systems that serve patients in both counties. Residents throughout Johnson, the greater Kansas City metropolitan area, share common stories of lengthy, congested commutes for everyday life. And our post-secondary institutions provide educational opportunities to non-traditional students, those who commute. Finally, we call your attention to the 2012 redistricting effort that kept Johnson and Wyandotte counties together and what the federal court noted in its decision. We ask you to keep Johnson and Wyandotte counties together for those same reasons. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Next up is Rachel Sweet of Allen Circle.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Sweet. I'm the policy director for Planned Parenthood Great Plains Votes, and we're the advocacy arm of Planned Parenthood in Kansas. And I'm here today because responsive representation is a critical part of a healthy democracy, and a healthy, functioning democracy is critical to keeping our communities healthy in the state of Kansas. And what does responsive representation mean? We've heard a lot today about partisan gerrymandering and talking about this as a partisan issue because we're all cognizant of the fact that this is a political process. But responsive representation means that Kansans are represented by elected officials at both the state and federal level who understand their community's unique needs, values, and challenges. It doesn't mean necessarily having an elected official that you agree with on everything all the time, but it does mean having someone who is accessible and who is deeply rooted in the community they are supposed to serve. 2021 has not been a banner year for our democratic institutions and our democratic process. Living in a democracy asks a lot of citizens, and I think it's really important that we contextualize partisan gerrymandering in the larger threats that are going on in our democracy this year. It started on January 6th with white supremacist violence at our Capitol, and it continued into the spring as state legislatures, including Kansas, passed laws aimed at making it harder for people to vote. If this is something that we care about, we have to stand up and protect our democracy. Again, living in a democracy asks a lot of us as citizens. That's why people are here today. We're asked to vote, we're asked to educate ourselves on public policy issues, and we are asked to advocate. Kansans that are currently in the 3rd Congressional District that live in Johnson and Wyandotte counties are a community of interest. The 3rd includes some of the most diverse communities in our state, and you can tell by the folks that have shown up today that it is absolutely critical that we do not attempt to break up this district and silence their voices. I don't think this group is going to be silenced very easily, but it is important that we do our part by showing up And I want to respectfully ask the committee to do its part and create districts where all Kansans will have the opportunity to have their voices heard and their values represented.
Mr. Sunkel and Melissa Guard, follow you. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. I am Alan Sunkel and I live in Leawood, but when I travel out of state, people ask me where I'm from. I say Kansas City because I identify with the metropolitan area of Kansas City. I've lived in this area since 1976 and in Leawood since 1989. I started my business in Kansas City, Kansas, and later moved to a larger building in the West Bottoms of Kansas City, Missouri. Then if the conversation goes longer, I explain that I live in a Kansas suburb and start extolling the virtues of my state. In the interest of brevity, I'm not going to list all of those wonderful things that I've listed because you all know that Kansas is a wonderful combination of different communities that make it a great place to live. The members of these committees and the legislators in the current session have the opportunity to set a 10-year legacy. While it might be tempting to draw districts to serve a partisan purpose, I would urge you not to do that. We are in what is the most partisan political atmosphere of my lifetime. As you can see, that hasn't been a short lifetime. Some people are even making decisions on what businesses to patronize based on the political affiliation of the owners, rather than the quality of the product or services rendered. That is not healthy for society or government. Drawing districts that divide people with common interests so they have no voice will only exacerbate that partisan divide. In order to maintain a government of the people must feel that voices are heard. Please don't take that away. We have a lot of common goals as Kansans that are not well served by the partisan rancor that exists today. So please keep those districts as geographically compact as you can. And I want to thank you all for serving on these committees. Thank you for serving in the legislature. And thank you for listening to my comments and those of other Kansans.
Thank you, sir. Next is Melissa Guard, followed by Patty Newkirk. Yes. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. To committee members, attendees, and other impacted parties, thank you for your time today. My name is Melissa Guard. I live in Gray Village, Kansas. When viewing my voting record, you will quickly see that I'm a passionate believer in participatory governing. I believe it is my responsibility today to represent all of the people who could not attend one of your town hall meetings. It is with the knowledge of that reliance of others that I implore you to take a moment to pause and accept that more thought and time should go into this decision process. I'm privileged enough to work for an organization that puts people first and believes in speaking out for those who cannot speak for themselves. Because of this, when I asked my boss just a week ago if I could take time off to be here today, it was a very quick yes, without me having to use PTO. This is not something that a large majority of the populations that redistricting impacts has an option to do. The process through which you have called these meetings and the timeline in which you are pushing them through is egregious. Take a few moments. Our government should be run and led by all of our people, and you should be prioritizing giving the opportunity to testify about this process to all demographic groups. Ensuring the accurate representation of voters is foundational to our democracy, and hearing how the process might impact people negatively or positively should be a focus of this committee. I believe the most important first step towards that will be opening up more town halls on more diverse days and times, and giving more people an opportunity to speak. We should be focusing this process on the voices and needs of the people in our communities, ensuring they are heard, ensuring they count, and ensuring you are doing the work of the people over politics should be task number one. We deserve your time and commitment to this process. I also just want to say quickly, I appreciate efforts made to giving access to people with disabilities, but the program you're using for closed captioning is not great. Best wishes to all of you, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Next on the list, I have Patty Newkirk, followed by Patrick Gouger and Mandy Stark. Stark. Time started.
My name is Patty Newkirk. This may or may not work. I'm not sure, but it's not too far. Okay.
A little closer to the mic, please.
Sorry. All right, there we go. I've been a resident of Miriam Shawnee for close to 20 years. And I want to stress today that a lot of people have said this, so I'll just summarize that the two counties have a lot in common, and especially in terms of community of interest and socioeconomic interests. And I was going to stress here on my map that especially what I wanted to highlight is, if you can see, probably a lot of people out there can't, but you can, and that's what's important, is that the Legends Village West shopping area, if you guys aren't familiar with this area, that's where I have the big arrow there. And I want to stress that as far as socioeconomic, that was built with what's known as star bonds. You guys may be familiar with that, but it's sales tax anticipated revenue. And the Legends Village West shopping area was so successful with star bond, that was actually paid off early, and remainder of revenue was then used to invest in more the inner area of Wyandotte County. And the basis of my argument is, if you were to take Wyandotte County out, that would take away that revenue, and we would no longer have that to invest in Wyandotte County. So I would ask you please not do that and put it in with a more rural area that would then disrupt that whole socioeconomic web that is so integral to our area. So thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Patrick Gouger. Is Patrick here? If not, we'll call on Mandy Stark Culbertson. Welcome to the committee. Whoa.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes. Please speak right into that mic.
Yes, staying masks and hearing aids. Well, thank you. My name is Mandy Stark Culbertson. I live in Overland Park. I'm a member of the Jewish community, and as a lifelong Keynesian and lifelong Jewish person, I'd also like to offer an additional prayer today. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ha'am ha'arazim. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, knower of secrets. This blessing is meant to acknowledge the diversity of humanity, and also the fact that God can know everything that is contained within our hearts. So I'm here today testifying on why the 2021 redistricting process needs to be fair and transparent, knowing what is in our hearts. Redistricting is supposed to reflect the changes in population and ensure that everyone is fairly represented. But by manipulating the lines, moving friendly voters into pockets of strength, and breaking up areas where a party might run weakest, members of the majority party can draw voting maps that benefit only themselves. How districts are drawn affects every political issue, as we've heard today, from the economy to healthcare to the environment to public education. If officials are elected from districts that don't reflect the population they serve, you end up in situations where elected leaders don't represent the people of their community. When politicians manipulate maps for personal or political gain, it prevents residents like me from having our voices heard on all of the policies that affect us. Kansas will maintain its 4 congressional districts, as we've heard, and the congressional maps, as we also heard, should remain close to their current configuration. Districts should be as compact as possible. And with the population growth in the Kansas City metro region, Kansas 3 can be contained wholly within Johnson and Wyandotte County. Splitting Kansas City, Wyandotte County, and Johnson County apart is a blatant attempt to manipulate the maps and to gerrymander Kansas, the 3rd district.
few liberties are more fundamental than the right to freely choose our representatives through voting. I'm disheartened to hear the statements that were made by former Kansas Senate President Susan Wagle and other state GOP leaders about blatantly pushing for partisan gerrymandering and not an open and transparent process. Creating fair districts will prevent partisan gerrymandering, and this is an opportunity for the Kansas legislature to be fair, transparent, and avoid losing the trust of the people.
Thank you very much. Next, Jones, followed by Don Lysott and Deborah Jarvis. Welcome to the committee. And if you find yourself saying things that have been said before in the sake of time, please say so. Thank you.
In attempt to move this meeting along, I'll just say it. The saying, it takes a village, is familiar to all of us. Most often I come across that in reference to rearing a child. It takes a village to do a good job of rearing a child. But it can also refer to responding to a national disaster or a pandemic. Or issues of safety and environment. So I could name others, but keeping a community or village together for purpose of representation in government is important in successfully addressing these issues that we hold in common. And after the census data is available, that's the time to determine what constituents identify as their community or their village of concern. And from that place, establishing a fair and honorable representative district can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Next, Don Lysott, followed by Deborah Jarvis. Here's Don. Maybe not. Well, we'll return to Deborah Jarvis, followed by Anita Park and Jim Switzer. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Deborah Jarvis, and I want to thank you for listening. Public service is truly loving your neighbor, and I really appreciated that in the opening prayer, if it's done selflessly. I have lived in Kansas for 4 years now. We moved here from Indiana, and I live at 158th and Metcalf. I'm in the 3rd district, the state rep district 27, state senate district 11, and Overland Park Ward 6. One of the biggest problems that we face in this country is polarization. And I believe that this is largely due, in part, at least, to gerrymandering. This gives unfair advantages to whichever political party is in power. As a former fire chief, I was acutely aware of the importance of being nonpartisan in order to fairly and equitably serve all of the members of the community. It's clearly a conflict of interest to allow elected officials to redistrict. It has resulted in supermajorities where votes are guaranteed for the party that's in power, so you don't really even have to secure our vote or even campaign. You should not be able to choose your voters. We should be able to choose you. As a leadership consultant for the last 15 years, I've traveled all over the country and have worked in the majority of states in this wonderful country of ours. I have seen many different kinds of discussions about public policy, and this one is front and center in many, many, many cities. And young folks are losing faith in our republic, our representative form of government. Many states are choosing to listen to their constituents and finding ways to end unfair redistricting. One of these is independent citizen redistricting boards. I urge you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Anita Park, followed with Jacob Switzer. Is Anita Park here? Did not see her coming forward. Next was Jacob Switzer, citizen. Welcome to the committee. And following him is Ann Pritchett.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. Jacob Swisher from Spring Hill. Most importantly, I want to welcome you to Overland Park and for all the stops that you're doing with 14 on your list. I want to also welcome you to the 3rd district as well. This process, I appreciate your transparency and giving us a chance to speak on this process. As you're all aware, Johnson County is rapidly growing. And especially as you look at DeSoto, Latha, Gardner, Springville, Lenexa, and kind of outside the 435 area. And with these growing, it's important that we all, as you heard today, continue to stay together. Please keep that in mind as you're working on the congressional, legislative, and school board lines. And again, thank you for your time and for making yourself available.
Thank you for being here. Next is Ann Pritchett. Do I say Ann? And following Ann will be Chris Roselle. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. My name is Ann Pritchett. I live in Overland Park, but like one of the other speakers said, when people ask me where I'm from Kansas City. I have family in Wyandotte County, I have family in Johnson County, I have family in Jackson County, Missouri. I go to a doctor in Wyandotte County. My dentist is in Jackson County. I have another doctor out in Latha. This is one big community, and it really wouldn't be fair to split us up. The other thing I want to say is we're in the middle of a COVID pandemic. Our hospitals here in Kansas City are full. If your children get sick, don't send them here because Children's Mercy Hospital doesn't have anywhere to go. But you come here and without a mask. How dare you do that? Thank you.
Following Mr. Roselle will be Don Nolan. Thank you and welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, legislators, government. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. My name's Chris Roselle. I've been a citizen and steward of the earth for 72 years. Our Constitution starts with we the people, not we the legislators, not we the president, not we the administrators. It starts with we the people. The concept of democracy is that people get together, talk with one another, and make decisions together and pass those decisions on to our representatives to go to our government. So proximity is very important. In Johnson County and Wyandotte County, we have 26.7% of the state citizens. Furthermore, we've gotten representation, our warrant, from every one of your counties in Johnson County because we receive immigrants from all over. So we need to be together, we need to talk together, we need to make decisions together. I would ask you to do what you can to urge for an independent commission because, as we know, power corrupts. Furthermore, to ensure that communities are together so we can dialogue together and to make it so that the community can be together to represent and coalesce around our interests and our concerns. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And last on the list that I have is Don Nolan. See Ms. Nolan. Thank everyone here. We want to thank all of you for your input today. It's outstanding and more importantly, specifics. That's what we like. This was really good. It is our goal to achieve exceptional transparency and public access. This was the 11th town hall meeting, stop in a 14-stop tour. We will now be going to Kansas City, Kansas, Leavenworth, and Lawrence. Tour is not the only time for input. We want to strongly emphasize that your input is wanted. We are working through all this officially about the tour itself, and before the session begins in January 2022, when we return to session, there will be hearings and more opportunities to provide testimony. We wanted to get out now. Excuse me, and thank you. I told everybody to, and I'll get the mic too. Thank you. We wanted to get out now and hear about your communities, how they've changed, and what the special circumstances are and considerations that we should take into consideration. As a minimum, providing comments by email to redistricting@klrd.kansas.gov or through the website at Kansas Legislative Research. And earlier, a gentleman said, how about a mailing address? Well, I've got a mailing address for you now. It's KLRD, 300 Southwest 10th Street, room 68 West, Topeka, Kansas, 66612. I'll go over that one more time. It's KLRD, 300 Southwest 10th Street, room 68 West, Topeka, Kansas, 6612. Again, I want to thank the greater Overland Park community for putting this operation together and providing this space. And I want to thank the audience again, their commitment to excellence, and the members for participating. Our next location will be in Kansas City, Kansas, and this, we are adjourned. Thank you.